Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett,
And I'm Kevin.
and we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie and discuss it every week, just like a book club. On today's show, we are covering the sci-fi horror classic, The Thing. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1982, The Thing was directed by John Carpenter and stars Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Wilford Brimley. In the winter of 1982, a 12-man research team at a remote Antarctic research station discovers an alien buried in the snow for over 100,000 years. Soon unfrozen, the form-changing creature wreaks havoc, creates terror, and becomes one of them. It's currently ranked 148 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.4 out of 5 on Letterboxd and is ranked 89 on its Top 250. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a quick spoiler warning for the film. We're going to spoil pretty much everything that happens in this movie, and we might spoil, an ending part, given our theories on it. So we will be discussing it, so if you don't want to know what happens, go watch it and then come back. And then stay tuned to the end, though, to find out what movie we're covering next week, because we keep changing up genres. It's nice. Alrighty, Kevin. So this week we have The Thing. So this was your choice.
Correct.
And what made you pick The Thing?
I have not seen it, so I wanted to see it. I've always enjoyed John Carpenter movies, so knowing that this is maybe one of his better works as well, I wanted to check it out and see what the not the hype, but like see what made this made it into the top 250.
Gotcha. I'm surprised you had never seen this before.
I'm surprised too.
But let's go ahead and I have seen this movie. It's shown up several times on other videos on the channel, and it's a great one. I'm not gonna lie. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about it. So this was your first time watching it completely fully. Now you kind of understand what a lot of people say about the film. How was it on your first time?
I thought it was fantastic. I loved every single second of it. I mean, there are some slow times, I feel like, in this movie that we'll get into hopefully, but the whole premise of it, of them being alone in Antarctica trying to fight an alien that can adapt, is really interesting and an interesting concept.
Yeah, and it's literally one of them.
Yeah.
So, like, you could, on the outside, you could look at this as it's an alien threat and they got to take care of it, yada, 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 right? But there's so much more that you can dive into with any kind of enemy among us story, right? Like, you could look at this as, like the Red Scare, which one of us is a communist? Or you could look at this, in any similar way. And I think that's what's so incredibly smart about it. I think that, sure, the movie has incredible practical effects.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a lot of fun moments, right? And when Kurt Russell's like, and fuck you too, or whatever, and throws the dynamite, it's great.
Yeah.
But like, it's literally the way that they tell the horror story like this in one of my favorite kind of subgenres, which is a team of people trapped somewhere where it's hard to get out.
Yep.
There's something there with them. It's one of my guilty pleasure favorite genres. But like, they infuse that with this really, really well told story. You really don't know who is not who they say they are.
See, I think nowadays, if this film was made, I think you would have gotten more hints about who was the alien throughout the whole entire thing. But I like how they didn't do it on this one, because then it makes the actors and the writers and the story come up with more creative ways to figure out who the alien was.
Yeah.
Or is, I should say.
100%. And we did get a later, not a remake of this movie, but it was a prequel.
But for the Norwegian.
It's with the Norwegian team, and we kind of figure out why they're shooting at the dog in the beginning of the movie, because the dog escapes with the alien in it. It is, that one struggles because they they did so much of the movie with practical effects, and then they redid it. They put computer effects over the practical effects.
Oh,
Yeah, it's one of the
why?
it's a bad story about studio interference, and it's just not fun to
Oh man.
really dive into. But
Mhm.
that movie's not terrible by any means, and I think it's actually a fine prequel. It just suffers from too many visual effects, and I think if it used the practical effects more, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people would have had a softer spot for it.
Yeah.
But this film, yeah, it's got that outsider story, right? Like you don't know who the bad guy is, and even at the end of the movie, like you don't know who's the alien, who isn't.
Or
are they both?
what?
Are they neither of them an alien?
Exactly. And they just leave it kind of on like I wouldn't say a cliffhanger, but it's more like a oh, well, they're sitting there. Who's gonna survive? And you can make all of these scenarios that Kurt Russell's character. It's Kurt Russell, right?
Kurt Russell's the main character, yes.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's character is the actual human, and the other guy might be the alien, because we've walked this whole movie with Kurt Russell. Like that's how I saw it, and I'm like, but I love how they put it up to interpretation. Like you don't know if they live or die, and you don't know who they are, which is I'm totally okay with.
And it almost doesn't matter because
they're both gonna die too.
Yeah, like but it is such a tense and remarkable ending. I mean, I have my theories on the ending.
It's hard to say, but I feel I want them to live, but I don't know who the alien is, or if there even is one, because again, they don't give you anything, and that makes it that movie fun, because it makes you really think about it.
Yeah, and my theory is that the Keith David character, who because it's just him and Kurt Russell, Keith David's an alien, and I think that because I believe that Kurt Russell gives him a cup full of gasoline to drink, and obviously the alien doesn't know the difference between gasoline and a drink or whatever, and he goes and there's a look that Kurt Russell gives him before it goes to the end, and it makes me think that Keith David's an alien. But you never know.
See that? I can see that.
We will never know.
We will never know, and that's okay if we don't know. We don't need anything like that. But yeah, like giving little hints like that to be like, oh, is that like, to me? I thought it was just a regular drink. I didn't know if it was alcohol or it was gasoline. But in my eyes, when he was like, oh, here, take this, and then he drinks it, and then Kurt kind of gives him that look. I'm like, oh, maybe he doesn't drink alcohol, and Kurt knows that.
Could also be it.
And that's what I got out of it.
But that wasn't really set up in the movie, as far as I remember. Is like the Keith David character being sober or anything. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could look into it, and that's a totally valid way. But the whole thing, like the whole film, is just so much. It is. I will say, like, it's not necessarily the scariest movie in the world.
Oh,
right?
It got me sometimes.
It does get you. There's some moments where it does get you, like when the blood thing jumps out of the petri dish and stuff.
Yeah, my heart stopped during that.
But like, I think this film is more scary because of the idea of the situation. Right?
Definitely
that
agree.
Pure unknown. There is something evil among us, which, yes, this film is a lot like Among Us, the game. And I'm just going to keep saying the words Among Us, so don't meme it. But like it that is horrifying.
Oh yeah,
that your friend is suddenly not your friend anymore.
But the perfect imitation, they could have done it in different ways, but I love how they did the perfect imitation of that person, because you can still have the actor being playing his character, but then kind of throwing things off a little bit by saying stuff a little bit different than they would, than the real person would, not the alien. And some people kind of catch up on that as well. So like when the dog comes back in the beginning of the movie, the dog comes back to the camp and all the other dogs are growling and barking at them. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's the aliens in here. I didn't know it was a dog until the great practical effects happen. But then I'm like, okay, so they give you little hints about everything, which I enjoyed, not fully giving you like they're here and stuff like that.
Yeah, there isn't like a
Telltale
gotcha
sign.
moment, a telltale sign, right? It's all
Hmm.
just hints that are dropped, and that's
Hmm.
masterfully done from both the script point of view, but then also obviously the director John
Hmm.
Carpenter, which I would say yes, I think this is his best film.
Okay.
I think like yeah, I almost said Alien. Halloween, yeah, is also a very good movie, but I think that this is later after he's been more experienced, and I
Mm-hmm.
think this is this flows a little bit better from as a film. I think Halloween does get dragged down a little bit
Hmm.
in
Well,
some of its moments.
in this
But
film too, when the alien is on the screen, you're worried about the alien and everything like that because it's, oh my gosh, did they kill him? Did they not? And then it
mhm,
kind of goes to this calm state, but you're still like, wait, somebody could be that alien, even though it's like they're all sitting down talking to each other and stuff like that. When you're like,
yeah,
but one of these guys could be that alien, and I shouldn't be like relaxed during the situation, but I feel relaxed and everything
mhm,
like that. And even when they have him like tied up, and Kurt has the two dead people tied up, the doctor and Windows. Is Windows tied up? No, Windows dies. Um, the doc and somebody, Clark. I think Clark it is.
mhm,
Clark tied up, and they're like, "Why are you doing that? That's so morbid." Well, because he doesn't know what can the alien come back to life, even though he, they were both dead. So he's just
yeah,
playing the smart game.
yeah, exactly. And it's again, it just leans into how smart and how well written it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's so many different moments of that. Like, it never feels like it's been written in a way that it's cheap, right? Like, there's a lot
No.
of ways you can do cheap horror with this and cheap scare moments, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't do that. Everything, like
And it,
every person reacts in a way that I feel like you would react.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, maybe not. I don't want to call it a cheap scare, but the Petri dish scare is more like a jump scare. But then you get
Yeah,
like the horror, gruesome scare with the man, that head walking around on the floor
like a little
is
spider. Yeah,
so cool, so cool. Or you get the chest burster come out. Well, I know that's aliens, but the
yeah. When it
chest,
opens up and it's just a jaw with the teeth.
so it's like
Ooh,
I knew that part was coming, but to see it actually unfold, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's if I think about it, if you were in the movie theaters in '82 and that does that, oh my goodness gracious, you're jumping out of your seat if that happens. And
oh
then
yeah.
again, with the body gore, the hands coming off, and Doctor screaming with his no hands, and then the head separating from the body, and it's not a fast drag, it's like slowly, and then all the particles happen, and then the
Mhm.
bubbles push. It's so good, it's done so well.
Yeah, and there's so many stories about the the person who does the visual effects. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the one who's responsible, like how it affected his health because he was literally working day and night to get these things
Mm-hmm.
working accurately, and like was working on like a diet of like coffee and candy or something like
Oh
that,
my gosh.
just to be able to like stay up and be able to work on it.
Hmm.
Like it's absolutely ridiculous, but like it pays off, you know.
It shows in his work, and you know what,
Yeah.
I know we sometimes we have those days at work where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to stay longer for this shift, blah blah blah. But then people are not, I don't want to say rewarded, but people are thankful for you for doing it. And that
Hmm.
when he probably went to go see this movie, he was like, damn, I made that shit, and
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm cool with staying up all of those days, having horrible coffee migraines, stuff like that. But this is what I wanted to make right here.
Yeah, and I mean, even though the film did receive bad reviews when it came out, a lot of people were not giving it very much praise.
Hmm.
Um, I think you can still be proud of the reactions you get in the
Oh
theater,
yeah.
right?
Well,
And
when you
they,
go to a horror movie and you get a reaction with like jump scares sometimes, and you hear people like, like jump back in their seat, you're like, oh, that was a good one, and stuff like that. So yeah, you get rewarded with the time that you put into it.
Exactly. And, I think it is crazy that this movie came out and had low reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of my favorite critics of all time, Siskel and Ebert, were not too kind to this movie.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, why? And I think you come to that with the sentiment of people at the time. And I
Yep.
think this has been definitely one of those movies that I don't want to say a cult classic because it is a classic, but it definitely got much more attention over time. The video rental market and
Mm-hmm.
people watching it again. Like, this is a movie that has inspired so many people who are directors
Mm-hmm.
now. I see inspiration from this in newer movies like The Substance,
Mm-hmm.
or it's there,
Yeah.
and it's just crazy to me that when that no one really respected the story when this came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you're still kind of in the middle of the Cold War at that point. It hadn't quite reached the end of it, so maybe people didn't really want to think about it that way, or whatever it may be, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it does bug me. It's like, this is one of the
Well,
smartest horror stories and
yeah.
like tone setters of the time period.
Yeah. And a thing that I want to bring up, Nadia first watched this movie, absolutely hated it. And she went back to it, I think, about a year or two ago, and she goes, "Why did I hate this movie? This movie is fantastic." So I'm thinking that some people saw it and were like, "Oh my gosh, it was bad," because I don't know if they didn't understand it or didn't
Mhm.
understand the situation that they were in. And then they came back and they're like, "Wow, actually, I understand what everything is happening here. And I'm so happy I came back to it and saw the progress that I have made by saying, this is actually a great movie." I think Ebert and what's the other name?
Siskel.
Siskel. I think they would have done the same thing if they watched it a little bit later in their life too.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, obviously,
Hmm.
opinions do change when you see
Exactly.
things.
Hmm.
So, like, I've warmed up on movies. I've also gotten colder on
Hmm.
movies. It happens. But this is one I think that I have never lost uh,
No,
any kind of respect for. So,
no, I actually can't wait to watch the prequel of this and see. I know it's going to be a little bit worse, but I want to see the story of the Norwegians too, just to see
yeah,
how that plays out.
really interested to see what you think of that one. Okay, so The Thing, Kevin. Final thoughts, score. What you got for me?
Yeah, so final thoughts is and for a 1982 movie, this movie is fantastically written. The horror behind it, there's multiple horror genres in this movie I absolutely love as well. You'll if you watch it, you know what I mean. And it's just a movie that I can see myself watching a lot now because of how amazing it is written and the horror aspect of it. The actors in this movie as well are fantastic. Everybody gets their time to shine. And the practical effects, yeah, you can't go wrong with it. So I gave this movie a 97 out of 100, which accumulates to 4.5 stars out of 5.
Alrighty. Yeah, I think this movie is absolutely fantastic. It's a masterwork of kind of that unknown, who is the bad guy, the terror
Hmm.
is among us type horror. It's also a subgenre, like we talked about, that I love, which is the people stuck in a location and can't really get out too easily.
And
Um,
we didn't even talk about them in Antarctica, and it gets so dark at night, and then it's so like light in the morning too. That plays a huge aspect in if they can see who's running out of the building and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like we
people
didn't even
freezing
talk
to
about that.
death, and
Yeah. Uh
yeah.
huh.
But also, this movie just has incredible practical effects, some of the best in the horror genre.
Hmm.
They still hold up fantastically today. And I will say that I think it was under recognized at the time when it came out. And
Hmm.
I think people now seem to love it with the respect that it deserves.
Hmm.
So for me, I gave the film a 95 out of 100, which is equivalent to a 4.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. But that is going to be the end of the episode this week. So the question now falls to you. What do you think of The Thing? We'd love to hear down in the description. Or description? I keep saying description. You can't edit that. The comments section. That's where you can put things. We'd love to hear what you have to say and what you think of the movie. Just remember to be respectful of one another because, they could be the thing.
Hmm.
Next week, very excited. We're going to be covering an Iranian drama, Close Up, which I'm very excited to watch for the first time. And I'm sure Kevin hasn't even heard of the movie.
Nope.
So make sure to watch it before next week so you're not spoiled. And again, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, this show goes live every single Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we have our live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk movie news, reviews, and so much more. So thank you for watching, and until next time, be sure to keep those eyes on the screen.